Hey there, people. Just thought I'd do a little vlogging for you and just give you some updates. First of all, the owl had some surgery and has a pin in its wing and is off to a recovery center. It's called Hope for Wildlife. If you Google that, you'll find their website. Uh, Nice bunch of people, I guess. Any kind of like road injured or like bald eagles, bobcats, any kind of wildlife that's in Nova Scotia. They'll take it in and rehab them and try and introduce them back into the wild and stuff. So it's pretty amazing. I never heard of them before, but it's pretty wild. They actually have a show on, I think it's TLC or something. It's called Hope for Wildlife. No, it's on Oasis. Anyway, but I plan on doing an update on the owl next weekend. We're going to go to Hope for Wildlife and do a little shooting there and have a look at the bird and see how he's doing. So that's coming up. Somebody, more than one person recently has asked me about how I finish some of the things I make. Today I did a little painting and I painted up that railing there with the blue nose in it. I don't know if you can really see it too well. There's part of it there, and part of it's out there and drying up. Paint a lot of stuff with that. Basically, I put a gallon of oil-based rust paint into a paint pot. This can handle like 2.5 gallons, and it has a sprayer that kind of hooks up to a hose, and it's just a pressurized pot and one of these handheld sprayers. The reason I like those so much is because you can spray upside down. You don't have to worry about it sucking air or anything like that because it's a pressurized pot, so you can spray any direction you want. And it works really well for that. It's really good for exterior stuff because it lays on a pretty heavy coat. A couple good heavy coats of that, it's pretty good. And also for some interior stuff even, it fills in the gaps because it's so thick a paint. Basically this is what it is. This is just one version of it, but pretty much your standard rust paint. It's a flat black alkyd interior exterior paint. It works pretty good. The next thing I wanted to do was answer some questions that one YouTuber had a whole bunch of questions. His username is Navaria, N-A-V-A-I-R-A, Navaria. I know I'm saying it wrong. Navaria or Navaria. I don't know. Anyway. Says, an aspiring blacksmith, he wanted to know some questions. To modern blacksmith. Hi Dan, I'm very happy to hear back from you. I have a list of questions. So let's just go down the list. Number one, how and when did you realize you wanted to become a blacksmith? Well, I kind of just fell into it because I took welding class, went to community college for welding to take a trade in welding. It was a 2-year course, and while I was in there, I was already starting to make some gifts for friends, and I made a bed while I was in there and some ornamental stuff. And one thing led to another. I opened up my own business right after I got out. I did a little stint in the welding world, went south to the United States and did a couple years down there. I was only 2 years in the trade, and I was running a welding shop in Florida as the shop floor manager. So I guess it's pretty rare to have a community college trained welder down there. Up here it was a subsidized course by the government, so there was lots of college trained welders. So anyway, I went down there and I did that, but then one thing led to another, and I decided to start getting into ornamental work. And almost 20 years later, it's pretty much all I do now is ornamental work. And the blacksmithing, the forging stuff kind of came into play. Just, if you're into ornamental ironwork, it's bound to happen. You don't have a choice but to learn blacksmithing. Okay, so let's get into number two. How long and where did you study? Well, I think I just answered that question. It was sort of self-taught. what really kicked off a serious interest in blacksmithing was I went to a blacksmith conference that was held here in Nova Scotia called Can Iron 4, and saw some professional blacksmiths from around the world and saw how they did things. And I'm not saying it seemed easy, but once you saw somebody do it, that's the way I learn. If I can see you do it, I'll just learn it, and just absorb it like a sponge. And other than that, just getting a lot of stuff from YouTube and the internet, that really helped. I mean, before YouTube came along, I was learning a lot from Anvil Fire and then iForge Iron, which they banned me, so fuck them, bunch of assholes. But sorry, I have a wicked cold right now. I feel like shit, but that's not your problem, is it? Mine. But anyway, so that's where I studied, the internet, and more or less self-taught, and did so much forging work I didn't really have a choice but to learn on my own. Number 3, how different is it to how you imagined it? Well, one thing I learned pretty quick was that the traditional image of a blacksmith is not what a blacksmith is in the modern world, and really doesn't even fit what a blacksmith was 100 years ago. After doing a bit of research and reading some books and things that were done by blacksmiths from way back then, blacksmiths were more or less mechanics back then. They were back in the horse and buggy days and towards the end of that, and when the car was introduced, the last true blacksmiths were sort of the remnants of cobblers and knife sharpeners and tool makers. They were sort of the community guy to go to that could make something or repair something that happened to be made out of metal. They were the original welder, the original fabricator. That's what they were. They definitely weren't artists. I've never seen hardly any references to art in the traditional blacksmithing world. That's sort of something that came up, probably in the 60s or something. I haven't seen a lot of old iron art, unless you count the old ornamental metalsmiths from hundreds of years ago that did all the stuff in Europe and that sort of thing. There's nothing like that in North America, really. I was going to say something else, but I forget now. Anyway, number 4. What are the best and worst sides of the job? Well, metalworking, in my opinion, is nasty, dirty work, and personally don't enjoy it very much anymore. But that's just me, I've been doing it for 20 years and I'm kind of fed up with it. But I'll always be a metal worker, I'll always pick away at something. But the worst part of it is probably just the heavy stuff, You're lifting some really heavy stuff. My back is wrecked, basically, from years of trying to move an I-beam here or there, and, because I did a lot of industrial metalworking. Which isn't blacksmithing per se, but even blacksmithing, it's nasty. It's really dirty work. I haven't been burned very many times. Nothing major to speak of, and haven't had any major injuries in the trade. It's just kind of crappy work, Anyway, number 5. How do you advertise your company? Well, and it says here, I know a part of the answer already. You are very present on the internet. Probably the most of all blacksmiths I've heard of so far, which is how I know you. Well, I don't know if I'm that prolific on the internet, but I know the internet does play a huge part in the amount of work that I get. And, word of mouth is everything for me. That's mostly how I get any kind of work, is word of mouth locally. Somebody I did a job for will, be in a conversation. Oh yeah, you got to meet this Dan guy, whatever. And then they'll send it to my website or something. So initially the work comes from the word of mouth, but usually it's just a good follow-up to have a really good website, show off things you've built and that sort of thing. Highly recommend having a good website. Ugh. Get out and walk, you bastard. Anyway. Number 6, how stable financially is the job? Well, I'll tell you right now, it ain't stable enough. But I honestly don't believe that I'm a very good businessman. You know, I'm kind of a drunken idiot that just does what he wants to do when he wants to do it. I'm not focused at all, so I've pretty well been lucky enough to get to as far as I've gotten. I don't think it's going to grow anymore, and that's part of the reason I'm getting out of it. I'm just a terrible businessman. Anybody out there wants to partner up and maybe run this thing for me, and maybe together we can become something huge, that'd be great. I got a million ideas and just no motivation to do them. So anyway, that's the end of that. Number 7, what type of work do you do most often? Well, I think that's pretty obvious. It's mostly ornamental, interior, exterior ornamental ironwork. A lot of giftware, interior giftware, fireplace tools and pot racks and those sorts of things. Just whatever I can do to make a dollar is what I do. I actually do a lot of buying and selling of equipment. So, I'll buy a piece of gear and I hang on to it for a few years and use it. And then if I want something a little better, I'll sell that and try to make a few bucks off it. I don't usually buy gear unless it's a really good deal. Just keep my eyes open. How do you discuss the design with the client? Do you produce mock-ups, and how? Yes, I do. I'm pretty good with talking to my clients and selling the product. I like to think I'm a pretty good salesman. I kind of just convince them that to trust me and talk to anybody I've ever done a job for. I often tell them that whatever budget they set, I'll make sure that they get their money's worth. So I usually try to, if it's a little railing or something, I'll say, how much do you think is too much money to spend on a railing? Because a lot of times they don't even know what they want to spend, but they know how much is too much. So if I say it's $1,000 and they're like, oh, then I'll say, well, I don't know, what do you think? Like $750? You think that's okay? And then basically I just build something that allows me to make a bit of profit and at the same time gives them a good product and everybody's happy. So that's kind of how I go with that. Do I produce mock-ups? Yes, occasionally. There's a job that somebody's interested in right now and they want some sample bits and pieces of the railing. It won't be a mock-up, but it'll be like sample parts, Number 9, last question. What do you do when there is no paid work to be done? Well, and I don't see the last part of his question. I've got this offline, but to answer that question, what do you do when there's no paid work to be done? Well, just like anybody else, if people that run a small business by themselves with a one-man thing like myself, if I'm not making any money at home here, then I have to go and get a job. And I am a highly trained welder and fabricator, so I usually go work at local fabrication shops. There's quite a few in this city, so it's pretty easy to find work if you know what you're doing. I'm pretty good with working stainless and aluminum. That's sort of gets me in the door because not a lot of people can work aluminum and stainless. So that's what usually gets me the job, and that's how I get in, to well-paying positions. Now, I won't lie to you, the basic pay up here in Canadian dollars for a top-notch fabricator welder is usually between $22 and $27 an hour. And usually to make the bigger dollars is getting into a union shop or a place like some of the shipyards that are here, some of the bigger, heavier shops where you really bust your ass for that money. In some ways, you're better off working for the $22 an hour, and you don't have to kill yourself as much. working in the smaller shops. And that's about it. So hope that answered all your questions. I know a lot of you people probably had some of those questions to ask, and this guy really laid them out pretty good. So anyway, we'll see you a little later, and take care. Bye.